And welcome back to Morning Express. It is now just about 3 minutes after 7, and this is time for the newsroom. We're actually coming to you from our newsroom where it all happens, where we do all the gathering, the compiling, and before you see it on air. So this is the newsroom. And joining me to have this conversation this morning in the newsroom, we have Koki Ochieng, who is a lecturer at USIU in journalism and communication. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
We also have Eric Odur, who is the KUJ, Kenya Union of Journalists Secretary General. Thank you for joining us, Eric.
Thank you, Mike.
And welcome. All right, let's start off with, what has been a big thing in the world over, and this is what we call fake news. We'll bring it down to Kenya, but generally speaking, fake news has become a big issue, especially as we get closer to the elections. If we would remember, even in the US, there was a lot that was going on. But basically, looking at how we in the media have a role to play in ensuring that we separate from the fake news to what is credible, what is genuine, which is what the members of the Fourth Estate were really are meant to be there for. Maybe starting with you, Koki.
I think the trend of fake news in Kenya started with the mines about Mugabe said.
Oh, yes.
This, and we took it for granted. But of course, people have taken advantage of the whole situation.
Although they do say that fake news actually was there even from before.
Yes.
Especially in Africa, fake news is not a new thing.
Yeah, because we are oratory in nature.
Yes.
So we would be able to change stories depending on circumstances. But the bottom line is that the control of information, like we said with this, with social media, has transformed people to what we call prosumers, people who produce and consume.
Right.
So not only are they able to put content together, but they have basic editing skills and are able to do things that will create sensation. And of course, nothing, this period becomes an appropriate period for people to be able to use that. And of course, it has its own repercussions. But what does the media then do when there's such prevalence? I think the media must always counteract with what is verified, what is true, what basically is the real context behind what has been said.
Okay. Yeah. And Eric, maybe looking at social media, because that's one of the main players when it comes to fake news, one that is able to propel and spread that fake news within record time. I mean, within a very short time, something that is fake could actually literally hit a country or even the world over before it is corrected. And maybe how we can circumvent that, or should we even circumvent that as a media?
Yeah, of course, it is the responsibility of the media, and I'm talking about the mainstream media, to verify this information, because right now, given that, just like you said, you've got social media and citizen journalism where everybody wants to inform the public. So it is the responsibility of the mainstream media to actually verify that information and also convey that information to the public. And the media must also be very careful, especially when they're using social media like Twitter and Facebook, because that's where most of fake news actually posted. And sometimes the media may find themselves falling into that trap by actually also circulating the same fake news. So it now is the responsibility of the media, especially information that comes through the internet. So because we know nowadays most newsmakers, they try to convey their message through social media, through Twitter or Facebook. So if there's a statement that has been released on social media, it is the responsibility of journalists to go through that statement and verify more before they now make that into a news and disseminate it.
Okay. I guess the challenge sometimes, Koki, and as a lecturer, maybe that is an area that you possibly look at when tutoring students. The dilemma sometimes is trying to get that story out, being the first person to, break the story or bring the credibility, yet we have to go through the checks.
I think, again, like I've always said, media will not compete with social media in terms of breaking stories. I think that one is a challenge that we have to accept. But what social media cannot do and will not do is the ability to verify information so that the public trusts what they say. So initially, there will always be that instant attention paid to social media posts. But bottom line is, when it comes to a news item, what is newsworthy? The media then comes in and gives the verification process. So you still have to find a way to bridge the two. But remember, bottom line is that the public depends on the media to come out clean about a circumstance.
All right. Now let's look at incidences that we have had what would term as fake news. And we do know that what has hit the headlines in the last few days is a statement made by the opposition leader Raila Odinga in Kajiado. And that could be misconstrued or taken out of context. But let's start off, first of all, with what he said so that we listen into that. And of course, then look at the role that we have, because we, again, are sometimes accused as the media of playing into the politicians' hands and, you know, going with the rhetoric. What is our responsibility when statements are made? And of course, one side of a political divide may want to take advantage of that. But let's listen in to what Raila Odinga had to say. And this, of course, has been taken by some politicians to mean one thing. And we find out what is our role as the media when it comes to news like this.
Watu nalazimishwa kuuza tu mashamba yao. Unauza mashamba kwa sababu sio kupenda kwako, unauza kwa sababu ya ufukara. Masivyo? Wao ndio wanakuja kuingia, kuvamia. Mpaka sasa kuja kama sasa hakuna mashamba sababu ya ufukara. Hiyo tunataka kubadilisha. Tunaweza kubadilisha hiyo ili watu wasiuze mashamba yao. Baki na shamba. Usiuze kule anatoka sababu gani anakuja kwako? Si abaki kule kwao.
We demand Honorable Raila Odinga as a leader, as a presidential contender, to apologize to the nation.
That amounted to incitement, that amounted to hate speech, and I personally, we just wait for Kaparo. If Kaparo give us instruction, of course the DCI is there, and I'm sure they must have been preparing to investigate.
Absolute nonsense. What is it that I've said which requires investigations? There's nothing I've said that requires any kind of investigations. My statements speak for itself. There's nothing criminal that I've said or I've done. So what would they be investigating?
Why is it wrong for Raila Amolo Odinga to advise Kenyans not to sell their property, but it's okay for Uhuru Kenyatta to go to Kiambu and tell residents there not to sell their land?
Just only 2 days ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta, while handing over title deeds in Kiambu, urged the people not to sell their land. Jubilee is sensationalizing the comments made in Kajiado, firstly because they have messed up the land chapters of the Constitution, and secondly because scaremongering is the only campaign tool they are left.
All right, and well, that's what the opposition leader Raila Odinga had to say. And just a quick reminder that you're welcome to participate in the conversation. Michelle Ngele is on standby. She's going to be looking at the feedback later on as we continue with the show. And there's also another clip that we're going to play, not right now, which is of the president, but maybe to get your comments first, Eric. In a situation like this, we have the politicians, of course, doing what they do best. He said, she said, and, you know, it'll continue up and down for days. But now, where do we come in? How do we come in as the media? And what is our role in this particular instance?
Make it simple. And actually, you started by saying that he said, she said.
Yes.
And I think the media must now get away from this kind of reporting. He said, he added, he accused, and so that we can go and put everything that he said into context. And I believe that the media can do this country more if we can now look at a statement that has been made by a politician and put into context and say that Raila was saying this and the context in which we are supposed to understand this statement, this is the context. So that we do not come up with a debate whereby now we are saying that Duale said this, Raila said this, so that by that time we are now confusing the public, and actually now we get the narrative that actually the politicians want the public to understand. Yeah.
But at what point do we actually come out and do that? Because we would still be required to report that this is what the opposition leader said, and this is what Duale has said, but at some point we need to come in and now give that context.
I think more or less reflecting on what does the National Cohesion Body say about what is tantamount to hate speech, or what would lead to violence, extreme violence, based on what has been said. Because again, in media, people frame things differently. People construe meaning differently. So depending on my persuasion, and sometimes it's affected by my way of thinking, I would say it is hate speech, depending on what my persuasion is. So where does the media comes in? It comes in to correct that perception that actually hate speech comprises of, and this is what it is like, and when this was said in this context, then this is what it meant. So you come in as a facilitator of knowledge to clarify issues around what has been said.
Eric, would you say in this particular case that we have done what is required, given that I think from the time the statement was made, we're looking at almost a week and a half of having the same conversation going on and all. Are we just perpetuating what politicians want?
Exactly that's what is happening. If you look at what has been happening, the debate, we are now allowing the politician now to debate the issue, other than the media coming in and help the public to understand it. And I know, having covered Raila Odinga is a politician. If you are covering him, you need somebody who goes there without excitement. Somebody who understands him very well, somebody who can put to context what he is saying. And that is every politician. And I think it's now upon the media and the newsrooms to understand the politicians. Then once you understand the politician, you only also understand as an editor, you need also to understand your reporters. Who is the reporter who can cover this politician best? So that we do not come up with this issue of he said, she said. And that's where the problem is, because I believe what happened is that there's reporters went to the field. Then from the field, they came up and said, Raila said this. Then it was picked by the politicians. And when the clip was played, of course, these politicians who are castigating Raila, of course, they know what Raila meant. But now they want to make it a political issue so that it can become a campaign agenda, because we know land question has always been an emotive issue in this country and forms the campaign agenda. So once the politician pick it and the media also playing into that, then that means the public is also going to be incited, like these politicians are saying. That statement was tantamount to incitement. So if the media can't come in and say that this is the context in which Raila said this, or if they can't understand it, it's upon them now to look for Raila. Because I know Raila is one of the politicians who is more accessible. Even if you're looking at night, you can get him as a journalist. So that you ask that, yes, this statement you made in Kajiado.
What did you mean?
But actually is now raising a lot of debate. What did you mean?
And have we done that in this instance to actually now go and put him on and ask him what exactly did you mean, for him to now be his own defender? I mean, we're not talking about somebody who came into the country and flew out.
Exactly.
He is available.
Yeah, and if you can see, like, what has been, again, the media waited for Raila to call another press conference. So that is when he was asked that this is what is being said. What did you mean? But I believe that once he said this, and as a journalist, you're supposed to understand this. Immediately, if you see there's a statement that has made that actually is causing a lot of reaction, then you're supposed now to look at the politician that, hey, this is what you said and it's causing this hit. What did you actually mean? So that you can put that into context. But you waited for him to call a press conference on another issue. Then he was asked that this is what you said, and actually this is what the Cabinet Secretary for Interior has said, and this is what the leader of majority in the National Assembly has said. What do you have to say? But then he reacted to that. He was saying that this is completely nonsense. Exactly. So I think that at this point, the media was got into the mix. Yeah.
Right.
I think the media also needs to, yes, you need to confirm what he said and be given another context, but the media has to create the context. What is the context? It is hate speech. It is what the National Cohesion Body is talking about. It is the impact it will have on elections and voter patterns. Those are some of the other side stories that you probably should tell to create the context. Because again, it's not, these statements are not being said within a vacuum, for example. Is it a true story that in that region maybe land has been sold off and it has repercussions? What are the behind the scene stories that basically can be told, so that we are very, in sync with understanding what the whole context is like.
All right, and let's bring in social media. But as we bring in social media, just to bring in the aspect now of the fact that we're living in an age where people are able to almost edit for themselves clips depending on what they want to propagate. There was one that was doing rounds of the president, and apparently this happened in Kisii, but it had been edited conveniently by whoever wanted to perpetrate whatever they were after. And want us to play that clip, then play the full clip, and maybe find out what is our role as the media. So this will start with the clip that was initially doing rounds and had been edited, well, conveniently. And this is the clip by the president while he was in Kisii. Then after that, we're going to play the full context of the conversation.
Jamii ilipigana nchi hii. Hakuna jamii ilipigana zaidi ya Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin. Tuseme ukweli bwana. Si ni ukweli? Leo hii rais ni Mkikuyu, naibu ni Mkalenjin, na tumechaguliwa na Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin.
So that is what the president, well, had been edited. But when you listen to the full context, it's something totally different. And this is what the full message was.
I am not lying. That is what will come here. Ni matusi. Yeah? Lakini nothing about a vision for this country. Nothing about a vision for this country. I am telling you, my brothers and sisters, we have a vision for this country. And we want to move together as a people to achieve that vision. We want to move together. It is time we stopped negative politics. Na wenzetu, kwa sababu mimi sifichangi, sisi zote tunajua shida ambaye ilikuweko 2007 kwa sababu, na najua hata mpaka wa leo labda kuna wengine wanasema lakini that is what we must avoid. And the only way we are going to avoid it is not by talking and living in the past, is by recognizing our mistakes of the past and rectifying them and ensuring that we shall never do them again in the future. Not inciting our people. Yeah? Jameni, kama kuna jamii ilipigana nchi hii, hakuna jamii ilipigana zaidi ya Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin. Tuseme ukweli bwana. Si ni ukweli? Leo hii rais ni Mkikuyu, naibu ni Mkalenjin, na tumechaguliwa na Wakikuyu na Wakalenjin. Sasa jameni, ni nini hii watu wanaweza kusema ati hatuwezi kusameheana? Hata Mungu alisema lazima tusameheane. Faida muhimu. Na hata babangu alikuwa anasema usisahau, kwa sababu ukisahau uko na uwezo wa kurudia. So we must never forget. And by never forgetting, that should not hold us back. It should always just serve as a reminder of the things that we must do to ensure that we do not slide back to problems. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Kwa hivyo mtu akija hapa awaambie ati msichague hii watu, mnakumbuka yale yalitendeka, kwani yeye mwenyewe alikuwa wapi na yeye alikuwa katikati ya hiyo vita? Alafu anakuja na laumu huyu ndugu yangu na yeye ndio alikuja kuwasha moto. Nani aliwasha moto? Nani alikuwa na lugha ya 40 against 1? Bana tuambiane ukweli. Na ameanza hiyo. Sasa sijui 39, bado ni 40 against 2. Sasa mimi sijui. Hiyo ni siasa ya kujenga jameni? Au ni barabara tunahitaji? Ni kazi ya vijana wetu? Ni majani chai tulipe pesa mzuri? Ni barabara? Ni hospitali? Ni stima? Maji? Kenya ikue, my friends. Na mimi nasema mambo haya yote nikiwa na heshima kubwa na ndugu yangu. Na kila saa mnasikia namuita ndugu yangu mkubwa. Lakini kuna pahali amepotea. Kwa sababu amekuwa stuck. Akifikiria hii mambo ya sijui wanaita third liberation. Sisi tunawashukuru, mlituletea basi hiyo demokrasia, sasa tunaenjoy. Na tumekushukuru. Lakini hatuwezi tuishi huko. Lazima tusonge mbele. Au ni namna gani jameni?
All right, so we have those two contexts right there. We have what was doing rounds on social media, and when you listen to the full context now, what had been edited sounded like he was literally saying that Kenya is made up of two tribes. But when you listen to the full context, he's saying that if these two tribes forgive each other, we can forgive one another. Are we supposed to be running behind social media every time, because this is bound to happen again and again? What's our role and how do we take care of this? Let me start with you, Eric.
Our role is that we have to stick to the issues that are being talked about during the campaigns. And of course, as a media, we've got, we're on social media. And I think we also must use our social media platforms to ensure that we are able to give the correct perspective and the correct context within which some of these statements were being made. That is how people will be able now to verify. We're not supposed to run to the social media now to be countering what is happening in the social media, but we're just supposed to run our social media platform professionally and put this information there. So that if there is anyone who wants to get this information can actually access this information and now is able to verify for him or herself whether this is what was said or not. Because I know, even besides that, what is now happening actually now, we always have people who are voice experts who are able to even imitate others. So what they'll do, they'll take one part of the statement, then they put in another one, then they put it together, and then it becomes a full sentence. So when the clip plays, you think it's one person who is speaking, but these are two different people with two different statements that have been put
or
together.
Sometimes conveniently remove some statements
exactly.
in between to make it sound the way you want it to sound.
Yeah, so that is how now that's how when the media comes in, we're now supposed to make sure that this information is always available. And I'm glad that actually the media has done that. If you want KTN, if you want any other station or any other newspaper, the content is there on internet so that you can able to go there and access it. And now it's upon you now to verify that and compare with what you've seen in other platforms and now come to your own conclusion. But I believe that even from the mainstream media platforms, you're able now to put these things into context, that somebody actually is now able to see the difference from what has been professionally done and the propaganda that actually has been posted elsewhere.
All right, Koki?
I think most of the sources of these clips are from your mainstream media online. I think so. The videos that you post alongside your news basically becomes that. So it's not a matter of competition. I don't think with the instantaneous way messages flow on social media that you can compete. Let's be honest. And the nature of the practice is that there are various gatekeeping mechanisms. So again, it's just about being keen to follow what is being misconstrued and taking time to clarify that. And of course, not taking such a long time. The longevity of time between your response to such would then lead to misunderstandings. Okay. So for me, it's not a race.
It's not a race.
Yes.
It's not competing. But
by
again,
the way,
we are still there to create the context.
Yes.
We are viewed as the credible source.
Yeah,
yes.
But you see, Mike, I think from the information that I have, I know that the social media platform of the mainstream media, actually, they have the highest traffic. Yes. And this is because people run there to verify information that are most likely they have read elsewhere. So the only role we have is to ensure that we always continuously and make sure that this information is readily available on this platform, so that if people go there to verify, they're able now to get the right context. So it's upon us to make sure that even we put this information there, they are put into the right context. If somebody visits the site, is able now to be satisfied that, by the way, this is what I had read in these were what was fake news was saying, but at least I've been able to verify from the mainstream media platform on social media, this is the context.
Okay, and Koki, maybe when it comes to training, maybe you could enlighten us on the training, especially now when it comes to social media, because we have for a long time thought of media as being the newspaper, print, and TV, but we have social media, which is sometimes ignored. And what happens, you'll find an IT person who has been put in charge of uploading content. And that sometimes can create a challenge because if the editor is not there to verify and ensure that what is going on is really credible, an IT person may not be the right person to do that. They may be skilled in knowing how to do it, but in terms of content.
Actually, I think nowadays most people being recruited are trained journalists to do social media platforms. And if you are not recruiting a journalist, then you're missing the point.
Right.
because social media is about content and creating conversations. So even if you have somebody who has an IT background, the ability to put the architectural infrastructure of the website or the blog or whatever it is important. But however, because of the function that social media plays in society, we in the training institutions are also looking at it in terms of providing the same skills would provide for any writing student, but then helping them to understand that they can work online because it's just another platform. So basically we train people for different platforms. So this is an additional platform that we should take advantage of.
All right.
But to add to that, I think it will be unprofessional and unethical for a story to be posted on a social media platform being run by a media house without going through quality checks as any other story is supposed to. And actually we even provided guidelines at the industry that any story that is posted on a social media platform owned or run by a media house has to go through quality checks just like any other story that goes to the newspaper that is published the following days. So if there is any media house that actually give the story to an IT expert to post it on their social media without going through quality checks, then that is not right.
Sometimes it's even just down to just the caption. You'll find that the caption and the statement that's put there sometimes is out of context. We've had interviews on certain mainstream media houses where a statement is picked, it's captioned, and when you look at the full context, it's completely misquoted, as it were.
Yeah, because I don't think the media house is paying attention to the fact that if you look at the Western world, Huffington Post, etc., New York Times, they are just making sure that, like he said, standards are across the board because this is just a platform and it still depends on traditional media. It still depends on video production. It still depends on writing. It still depends on... So the value system that journalism as a practice, imparts must also be replicated. It should be looked at as a very important aspect of media today.
Not even looking at it as an experienced editor, I'll tell you that if you are editing any material, actually the first item you're supposed to look at is the caption, be it a newspaper or even on TV. What you're supposed to look at is a caption, but sometimes we do not pay attention to caption. That's not important.
Right.
But actually, that is one of the most important content. Exactly, like because people will look at the picture and read what is in the caption. So actually, captions are a very important aspect in any news any news item.
Okay.
To add value, let the media not be confused with the idea that social media has, is wide, it has accessibility, because at the end of the day, these people you're talking about are either amateur journalists or amateur in the sense that they don't have training, or they could be bloggers whose agendas is totally different.
Completely different. Yeah. All right. And well, this is the newsroom, and your calls are welcome. Also, we have some response coming through via social media, and at this point I want to cross over to the other studio where Michelle is on standby to pick your calls and also to just give us a look at what we have coming as response on social media. Michelle.
To those calls, Michael, and calling in now is Paul Mark from Kasarani here in Nairobi. Paul, good morning. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, morning, Mike. Morning, Mike and panel.
Ed. Good morning, Paul. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's your question or comment?
Okay, fine. I wanted to comment on this social media and this other media issue and say that it's very hard for people to go and verify whether what has been said on social media is the correct stuff. And so now it falls on the media, on the streamlined media, to straighten up the issue and tell us what is real stuff. I'm even forced to think like, is media paid to say or not to say some things? Because, like now when you listen to what Raila had to say this morning on the clip and Uhuru Kenyatta, then you don't make sense of the news that have been there. You find there's no information. Actually, what has happened is that we've been lost. Can we then go and conclude and say that the media needs to work out to help the Kenyan people, whereby even at this time of the political heat and all this, we don't end up fighting because of the information they're giving us?
All right.
I pray that you become kind enough.
Okay, thank you very much. That is Paul Mark calling in from Kasarani. We also have Steve calling in from Kisumu. Steve, good morning. What's your question or comment?
Good morning. I was asking, what is hate speech? Because when it comes to Raila asking the people not to send their land, that's when it comes to, they call the hate speech. I don't know the definition. But the pundit define hate speech and the content.
All right, that is Steve calling in from Kisumu. Steve, we seem to be having a bit of a connection issue with you, but remember, you can continue calling in and contribute to our newsroom conversation. We're speaking about the role of the media. It is now 47 days to the general election, and that conversation also continues on social media. And remember, we're also asking you this morning on our question of the day, whether you think security apparatus or security forces, rather, are being compromised to rig the election, a conversation which will also continue on the newsroom this morning. So let's take a look at what some of you are saying on our social media platform. And just before we get to that, the hashtag, remember, is Morning Express KTN to give us your feedback. But we have Charles here saying that this is a situation that does not need to continue. And we also have, just a minute. All right, there we go. The conversation on the security in the country, and some here say where there is smoke, there is definitely fire. And what the flag bearer Raila Odinga says that needs to be looked into. We also have George Brack here saying when Honorable Duale makes outrageous statements, he isn't taken into account. He talked about the Al-Shabaab list. He talked about Odinga funding. What happened to that? And so this is a conversation we are keeping tabs on. Do continue giving us your thoughts and comments, and we'll continue taking your calls as well. It is now 34 minutes past the hour. You are watching Morning Express. The newsroom conversation continues after this short break, and we'll also take your calls as we carry along.
This is KTN News.
Saa hizi hakuna mheshimiwa, msidanganywe. They are misters, all them misters. They should come to you for vote. Muwapatie kazi tena. Asije kupiga kifua, mheshimiwa. Mheshimiwa kitu gani? Waje waombe kura kwa heshima. Unawakitumia lugha sana, si matusi. Simuliwapa 5 years. Already bungi imevunjwa. Let them come kwa heshima kwetu.
jambo la kwanza uwe Mluya kabla hujafikiria kitu ya kitaifa.
Wakenya wanapenda chama ambacho ni cha kitaifa.
Dhambi ni dhambi, mtu nako libuoni ni muoni, si ndio?
Wakenya wanachukia vyama ambavyo ni vya eneo fulani.
Tukiona iko nafasi na iko mpenyo na tunaweza chukua, tutaenda tuchukue.
Mimi ni Carol Nderi nikiwa Nyeri na hii ni KTN News.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back to Morning Express. It is now just about 20 minutes to 8. It's still the newsroom, and we're looking at some of the stories that have made headlines and basically the coverage. And just before we took a break, we had Michelle Ngele giving us some of the responses coming back on social media. But one of the callers mentioned and said that looking at the clips now that we have just played vis-a-vis what has been going on, he's left wondering whether journalists are paid to have some of these stories run. But that now also opens up the door for us to talk about the story that also has been on the headlines, and this is to do with Walter Menya. And maybe I'll start with you, Eric Odor, with the details of this particular story, because what we've had and what has, I asked a few people, just random, what they thought of the story, and they thought maybe it's just journalists who are being given the brown envelope and being paid.
I think let me first of all respond to the caller, because I think like I said, there are two platforms here. We have got fake news, then we've got the traditional media or mainstream media that actually is also informing the public. So I don't think if this clip, that the disputed clip was removed or gotten from the platform run by a mainstream media. This is propaganda and fake news. So I think that he needs also to distinguish between the two. That I don't think if this clip was from KTN or NTV or Citizen or K24 or KBC or any other.
It's actually running on social media on people's private platforms.
Yeah, so he needs to understand that anything that is being run by someone on his own Facebook account or Twitter or Instagram, that is different from what is done by the media. The number two, even for journalists themselves, even who run their own pages or accounts, it has always been, it is a policy on various media houses that whatever you do privately must also reflect your position as a professional. So therefore, whatever you say should not contradict what you say as a professional. Whatever you say at your private account should not contradict what you do as a professional. So I think that is also very clear. Then now to go back to the issue of Walter Menya, journalists are not paid brown or given brown envelopes to those stories. Journalists are paid as professionals by their employers, just like anybody else. They are on payroll. Every month they are paid their salaries as anybody else. So I think the issue is that maybe corruption is a problem in our society. And maybe we might have the cases of corruption. But the case of Walter Menya, as we've defended it from Sunday up to yesterday when we were in court, it is an issue that was well choreographed to ensure that they discredit the media as we approach elections, so that the public can now lose trust and confidence in the media. And that is why the reason why they were unable to charge him. Because they even tried, as late as yesterday afternoon, they were even trying to come up with charges of with 5 counts. But that charge sheet was defective, and it was rejected by the prosecution. So that means that this was a well-orchestrated move to discredit the media. However, we might have cases of corruption, and we're not disputing that. If these cases are there, then let people who are affected come out and report that. Then these issues can be investigated. I was hoping that the case of Walter Menya was going to be a case study that can be used, that this is what is happening in the media. But apparently, it's something that has been, a trap had been laid so that the media can be discredited.
Okay. Koki, in terms of now training, when it comes to training, of course, there is the code of ethics, even for journalists in what they can receive. But sometimes some may blame it and say that there's a fine line. Because according to this case, they were saying that apparently at the point where he was getting the brown envelope, or the supposed, the alleged brown envelope, it was because you've done a good job. So really, it's just saying thank you. Where does one draw the line when it comes to this ethics? Do you completely refuse?
How many stories then will journalists be thanked for? I mean, I think that would not really hold water. But the idea about journalism as a profession is to tell stories that are of public interest. And public interest then calls for you to put aside your personal, your personal needs or personal interests. Because at the end of the day, journalism is about telling stories based on facts to be verified, okay? And it is about giving the respondent an opportunity to respond to whatever issue that has been raised. So for me, I hear that there are instances where, the brown envelope is sometimes perceived as a thank you kind of situation. But bottom line, I think the journalists themselves need to realize that this is a very sensitive period. And what happened to Walter can happen to you. So we think that from a training perspective, that's not what we churn out unless it is the industry itself. The other thing that we can also query is the HR or the remunerational aspects of it. All journalists are not probably affiliated to houses, media houses. They could be correspondents, and that might mean that probably in a way to meet their needs, they might find ways to use, other routes to get financing.
Should that be a basis to disqualify a journalist under integrity and ethics? Because at the end of the day, how is it that we are standing guard for the rest of the people, yet we are also affected by some of these issues like corruption?
But I think it's until proven guilty. Yeah, until proven guilty. And we were all waiting, like you said, to see what would be the next step, because these are all allegations. But what are the facts? What are the facts on the ground? And how is media playing into the hands of those crafty people? Those are the questions that we should be asking.
Yeah, yes, I'll agree with her that actually journalists now must be very careful and very cautious with how they deal and how they engage their sources, news sources, so that they don't get themselves being lured into such traps and then they're used against it. Because a journalist, their integrity must be very high, the threshold must be very high. And even the code of conduct for the practice of journalism actually in this country also actually outlaws these cases of receiving bribes or being induced or being influenced or being somebody telling you thank you. Actually that is not acceptable. And I think there is a complaints commission that actually these cases are supposed to be channeled to and they are investigated. I still believe that Mr. Koros, who was accusing Mr. Menya, can still go to the media council with more facts and say that actually, as much as Menya was not charged in court, but still believe that this guy actually received money or demanded money from me, and these are the facts. Because how can you, because if you look at the case of Menya, this guy was actually was in a hospital on the day of his arrest. Actually, this guy was arrested from a hospital when this guy was now going to take the bribe to him. I believe if you are extorting money, you are supposed to go to collect it somewhere. But this is the case somebody is bringing you the bribe in a hospital. Then
it's literally almost following you.
Exactly where you are. Then number two, this guy actually sent you an M-Pesa because there are all allegations of M-Pesa. And until and when probably we'll have a system like Facebook, when somebody is sending you a friend request, you have to accept. Until we have such a feature, maybe with M-Pesa. Exactly, when you receive an M-Pesa, reject it. When you say that, Eric, you are just about to receive 5,000 shillings from Mike, are you going to accept it or reject? But exactly, those are the cases because we are at a very vulnerable position as journalists. Because I can leave this place, Mike, then I go there and say, okay, we've had a very good show. Let me send Mike 5,000 so that he can text you. So will that be a bribe or not? Maybe because I want just to influence your work. That shouldn't, so that if you have that ability or that capacity to say, no, I'm going to reject the M-Pesa that I'm just about to receive from Eric, then we can do that. So this is a very gray area that we also need to discuss in a better way so that we do not lay traps for people so that we can discredit them.
All right. And as we get closer to with concluding this, we are getting to a season, or we are already in a season where it is very political. In terms of Koki having a political desk, one that literally, I think Eric alluded to that fact earlier on when he mentioned when you cover certain political political leaders, you need to know, you need to have somebody who at least knows their track record, know what some of the things that they are likely to say and what they mean, which could be misconstrued, maybe in terms of training and having a specific political desk, especially at this time.
I think it's just increased capacity that will be needed because of the electioneering period. Because again, media has experienced a lot of rebut during electioneering period. Actually, it can make or break media in Kenya, so to speak. So more vigilance, especially in telling political stories of political angles, need to be looked at. Where you want to specialize in political journalism or just have a political desk, I don't advocate for specialization. I just advocate for ability to tell stories within whatever context, because that's what makes a journalist a journalist.
But are political stories possibly more not sensitive, but do they have a different angle of which you'd want to tell them? Because they're filled with spins. They're things people say and mean something different, or say something and it can be misconstrued very easily.
No, I think it's just facts, facts, facts. What are the facts on the ground? What is that political issue hinged on? Okay, what is the Constitution saying? It just brings in the idea of very many sources or very many contexts that you need to galvanize the story so that politics is not the issue of the day. Because politics is a game that is played during electioneering period. But the real matter that, where the rubber meets the road is when people get into those positions. And that's what should they be doing? And what guides what they should be doing? Or what did they say they were doing? And what guides
weighing
what?
It against
Yes,
the facts
yes.
on the table. Eric?
This is simple. As an industry, actually, we've made this thing simple. We even produce guidelines that journalists are supposed to use when they are covering the elections. Even to deal issues to do with fake news. We have their hate speech. We even went ahead even to define what is a hate speech. And in line with the National Cohesion Integration Act, we even went ahead even to define what forms hate speech. So that when we are discussing the Raila clip, journalists actually they even have a soft copy of that online that you can go there and see that according to the guidelines we've been given, does it actually amount to hate speech? So that when you are reporting this, you're already informed. So these, the materials and the resources are already there, readily available for journalists to use when they are covering elections. So they're able to cover these elections as accurate as possible. But what I agree with her, what matters most is facts. And verify these facts so that when you are communicating with the public, you are giving the information that is accurate and objective as possible.
All right. And
so maybe just research, enhance the research capacity on the context, on understanding the issues, and just making sure that, you need to have journalists who are versatile, who can, ride across issues, such that even if somebody is giving that political story, we have other input from other aspects.
Then again, we even went ahead even in the guidelines, even to make it a responsibility of the media houses to ensure that journalists have the capacity in terms of even movement, so that they do not become vulnerable to this issue of brown envelopes. Because we realize there are some radio, especially FM stations, the ones that are just starting, and those one on a digital platform, who do not even facilitate the journalists to cover these functions. And that is why now actually where the journalists will now become vulnerable. Because again, sometimes even they rely on politicians to give them lifts. Right. To hike a lift from a politician's vehicle, then you expect this person to be
already compromised.
So as much as you also blame journalists, but again, it's also to the employers. The employers must also ensure that journalists are adequately facilitated to go and cover these elections. But if a journalist goes there and then you look weak, you look vulnerable, you look somebody who can be bribed, then this is when you open all these doors for these politicians actually now to see how they can influence and induce you to do favorable stories again for them or against their opponents.
All right, Koki, your closing comments and maybe advice to journalists, especially at this season. Any journalist worth his salt looks forward to an electioneering time because that's a time to make a mark.
Just to add value, just before we go very far, actually remuneration in the media must be looked at critically because, like he said, and facilitation too. If you have a compromised mind out there writing stories, then the story will be compromised. And then, of course, journalists are at risk I mean,
Like
the profession is at risk. I read in another article that, journalism is being murdered because people do not want the truth to be told. So then what do we do to mitigate that so that our profession is not going to die?
Okay.
So we need to be able to focus on what is really important. Facilitate the journalists, make sure that they are available wherever the story is, make sure that the news is churned out as fast as or as quick as, or a quick follow-up to what social media is saying, and just be on the toes. And remember to provide context.
All right, Eric, your
I think I
comment.
must say that journalism is not on sale. We are going to remain professional, and we are also going to on the lookout of the people who are trying to lure journalists and laying trap for them to receive bribes. So we'll just ask journalists to also to forward us those M-Pesa, because the law says that whoever gives is also guilty, is also culpable, so that we can also see how we can also take action against people who are trying to kill journalism through bribery.
Thank you very much. That's Kokyo Ching, a lecturer at USIU in journalism and communication, and Eric Odur, who is the Secretary General for Kenya Union of Journalists. Thank you for joining us this morning on the Newsroom. That's where we wind up the Newsroom. And for those of us on KTN Home, we say goodbye. It's time for Life and Style. But on KTN News, do stand by. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we've got some news updates for you.